Okay, we're going to be looking at solving trig equations today, and the first type of problems that we're going to be looking at are going to have an angle measure of like 2x or 3x. And these problems are going to be asking us to solve on an interval of 0 to 2 pi. And I think that the way that makes the most sense is to go back to the graph of this function, in this case it's cosine, and look at what this means graphically. Here I have the equation that's asking me to solve for the cosine of 2x to be 1/2. That is this point, this one, and this one. Because I'm only going to 2 pi. Now, another thing that I want to do is to realize that when I'm going to be using my unit circle, I'm really not looking at cosine of 2x. I'm just looking at a cosine of theta. So I'm going to use that substitution to help me figure out what theta is, and then from there to find out what 2x is. So if I go to my unit circle, here I have listed the cosine of theta is 1/2. And I know that that is going to be associated with an angle of pi over 3 and 5 pi over 3. So theta is going to equal pi over 3 or 5 pi over 3. But remember that my original problem didn't have theta, it had 2x. So 2x is equal to pi over 3. Here I have 2x equals 5 pi over 3. So solving these equations for x, I get x to be pi over 6 and x to be 5 pi over 6. This point has an x value of pi over 6. This point has an x coordinate of 5 pi over 6. And one thing that you can do just to stop here and be sure you're on the right track, you can see that right here, just to the right of 5 pi over 6, I have pi, and pi I could write as 6/6 pi. So I know that this point is less than pi, so I'm pretty sure I'm on the right track here. All right, now the other thing I need to do is to figure out what these 2 points are. In order to help us determine these points, I need to look at the period of this function. We talked about the period of trig functions in our last chapter. The period is 2 pi divided by b, where b is the coefficient of this x term. So the period for this equation is 2 pi divided by 2, which is pi. That means if I'm going from this point to this point, there's a difference of pi. So in order to get from here to here, I have to take pi over 6 and add pi to that, and I end up with 7 pi over 6. And then to get from this point to this point, and that is going to give me 11 pi over 6. So my 4 solutions are 11 pi over 6, 5 pi over 6, 7 pi over 6, and 11 pi over 6. Okay, problem 2, I'm looking at solving the equation sine 3x equals negative square root of 3 over 2. And I'm still looking on solving the interval from 0 to 2 pi. And notice that I have my sine graph down here. I have sine 3x equal negative square root of 3 over 2. And those values are down here, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of those values before I get to that 2 pi. So I need to figure out what all 6 of these values are. Well, the first thing I'm going to do here is to write this sine theta equals negative square root of 3 over 2 and use my unit circle to figure out what theta is. Okay. The sine values are the y coordinates, and you can see I have a y coordinate of negative square root of 3 over 2 at 5 pi over 3 and 4 pi over 3. Okay, I have theta to be 4 pi over 3 and theta to be 5 pi over 3, but I'm really not interested in theta. I'm interested in 3x. So 3x equals 4 pi over 3, and that's going to give me x to be 4 pi over 9. Over here on the second angle, 3x is going to equal 5 pi over 3. So x equals 5 pi over 9. So those 2 points are plotted down in here, and I'm really not interested in exactly which 2 points they are right now. The next thing I want to look at is the period of this function. Remember that period is 2 pi divided by b. So in this case, I'm going to have 2 pi divided by 3. So once I know this point here of 4 pi over 9, and it is this point, 4 pi over 9, then I can add 2 pi over 3 to that to come up to the next point. So I can add 2 pi over 3 to this point to get here to this point, and then add another 2 pi over 3 to get to this point. And then I can do a similar thing here with the points that I'm going to highlight with blue. Okay, this graph is just going to get in my way, so I'm going to get rid of it and then continue on with the problem. I know I have 6 different values for x. I'm going to put blanks in here for all 6 of those values. One of those angles is 4 pi over 9, and then I'm also going to be adding to that periodic intervals. Another angle that I have is 5 pi over 9, and I'm going to be adding to that the 2 pi over 3 for those intervals. So I'm going to be adding 2 pi over 3 here, and I'm going to be adding 2 pi over 3 here, and to get from this point to this point. Now all of these points are not in order from smallest to largest. There's some overlap here, but you get the idea of what I'm doing. And there I have listed out all 6 of the angle measures that are going to give me a cosine of negative square root of 3 over 2.